speaker, James T. from Auburn, California.
James, alcoholic. Up until now, this has been a great convention. My mouth's kind of dry and my heart's going fast and my knees are shaky and my palms are sweaty, and I think, man, I used to spend a lot of money to feel this bad. I want to have a disclaimer right off the bat that I'm just another alcoholic up here trying to stay sober one more day. And I'm not an authority. I'm not an expert. That's what that blue book is for. But I wanted to try to give a little bit of credibility to my talk, so I thought it would be nice if I quoted a passage once in a while or a page number. But I'm kind of old and my memory's not very good, so I'm just going to make stuff up. And I hope that if I mention a page number and it's not right, because it probably won't be, that it'll get you into the book. And I hope you can find yourself in that book. Because I found myself. You may not think you know me, but you know me really well because I'm really well described in that book. So, my wife and I have worked out this deal to help with memory as we get older. She remembers who we are, and I remember where we're going. I brought a little bit of smart water with me here. It's gonna kick in a couple of minutes here. I wanted to thank Kavika for inviting me and my wonderful host, Beverly. And I've had such a wonderful time. And when I was asked to come speak here, and Kavika says, yeah, and we're going to talk about God. I'm thinking, can we talk about getting a root canal or something else? But we're going to talk about God. And the closer I got to coming here to speak, the more excited I got about it, obviously, but also how important it was for me. And when I woke up this morning, I realized that this is the most important day of my life. And I hope it's important for you, too, because today's the day I don't drink. And prior to finding you, I always thought tomorrow was the important day. Tomorrow, I'm going to get it together. I'm going to become a vegetarian. I'm going to quit smoking. And I don't know if I'm going to quit drinking, but I'm going to cut way back on my drinking. Might have one or two, maybe 3, 4 at the most. And just that little shift that I've been able to make by realizing that today is the day that counts, it's changed my life. And I'm sure that it's changed yours, too. And I'm very grateful for that. A while back, I got to speak out of town. Every once in a while, I get invited someplace, which is really nice. And my connection was delayed. And I was afraid I wasn't going to get to where I was going to speak. And I was fearful of not being there in time. And so I texted my host and said, I don't know what to do. What do I do? He texted me back, read page 449 and go to a meeting. The first time I came across this smart water, I was at a meeting and my mouth was real dry, so one of my sponsees ran to the corner liquor store. We have a liquor store next to our AA clubhouse where I live, in case anybody changes their mind. And so I got this bottle of Smart Water, but I couldn't get it open. I guess you got to be smart first. I don't know you. But anyway. But I love sponsees. Just as a show of hands, how many people have sponsees? Fantastic. Extra credit. How many have sponsees who are here with them today? I brought Steve with me. I never leave home without him. I love sponsees. Aren't they fantastic? Wow. Usually when I go to conferences, I'm in the audience rather than up here. And sometimes I get done listening before the speaker gets done speaking. I don't know if that's going to happen to you today, but if it does, I wanted to say something important right off the bat. And I believe that I've said 3 things already that are important. I want to kind of recap what they are. 1, today's the day that counts. 2, if you have a problem, there's probably a spiritual solution for it. Not probably, there is a spiritual solution for it. And 3, if you want to stay sober, nothing so much ensures immunity from drinking as active work with other alcoholics. That's sponsorship. If you're having trouble listening, I'm reminded of a buddy of mine, Mel, who came in and out of AA. He just couldn't seem to hear the message. And one time he's drunk in the back of a bar in an alley, and he comes to, and there's a wino pissing in his ear. He came back to AA, and he heard just fine. So I got to thinking about this Smart Water. When if I was to look at my career from the time I got out of college, I started off with a good job, and they went downhill from there. And this good job that I had was working on Madison Avenue in New York City for an advertising agency. And if you've seen Mad Men, you know what that was like. And I thought, wouldn't it be clever if somebody in advertising had figured out a way to properly label whiskey? Because you go to the store now and you buy a bottle of whiskey, you don't know what you're going to get. But if it was labeled properly, you could go to the store and you could get a bottle of Smart whiskey. Say you had a problem you wanted to think about, so you get some Smart whiskey. Or you want to take a trip, you get some traveling whiskey. You know, that stuff where you wake up some strange place and like it was said this weekend, don't recognize the wallpaper. Or you're lonely and you get some of that dialing whiskey. And you call people at 3 a.m. Because it wasn't labeled, the stuff that I always got was puking and going to jail whiskey. Or demoralization whiskey, or quicksand whiskey, or rapacious creditor whiskey. It's just not labeled properly. So that kind of describes my drinking. You know all you need to know about my drinking from that. But that's not my only problem. I've got at least one other real obvious problem. That's my thinking. Drinking and thinking and thinking and drinking and drinking and thinking and drinking. It's just exhausting. Einstein says, none of your current problems can be solved by the thinking that created them. My thinking caused my problems. It doesn't fix my problems. So I need help with my thinking. I don't know if you've seen this 20 questions for your drinking. You can take those same questions and ask them about your thinking. Is thinking you causing problems at home? You like to think alone? Would your life be better if you quit thinking altogether? Every once in a while in AA, I hear somebody talking about their thinking. They say, oh, my thinking's like, I have this little hamster cage in my head, and it spins around and around like that. And I think, oh, how sweet is that? I got a shit-slinging monkey in my head. So I'm the kind of guy that needs help. I need to have a sponsor. I've got a sponsor. His name is Jack. Jack is my second sponsor. My first sponsor was a woman. Her name was Donna. And Donna was a heavy smoker. Last thing I remember Donna saying to me is, sobriety is no fun when you can't breathe. And Donna died when I had 18 years of sobriety. And there's another saying that I like a lot, too, is be nice to the newcomer, he may be your sponsor someday. And I was nice to Jack when he got sober, and he's my sponsor now. And I love people, how they like to brag about how long their sponsor's been sober. Like, my sponsor sponsored Moses. But what I like about Jack is what a great program he works. He's just a wonderful example of the power of AA. Abe Lincoln says, it doesn't matter how tall your grandpa was, you got to do your own growing. And Jack, before he retired, he was an air traffic controller. And before I retired, I was a teacher in the Department of Corrections. Corrections and control. Jack and I have issues. I also have a sobriety date. It's December the 6th, 1982. It's the last time I smoked marijuana. We got any marijuana smokers here? That was a trick question. We have any ex-marijuana smokers here? We don't smoke marijuana in Alcoholics Anonymous. AA is a program of abstinence. It's not a program of harm reduction. Thank you. I heard outside of a meeting a while ago, I heard somebody ask a newer guy what his sobriety date was, and he said, "Which one?" He said, "I haven't had a crank for about 3 years since I got out of prison, and I haven't had any marijuana for over a year and a half, and I would have had 90 days today, but I had a beer last night, so I got 89 days today." So it's called newcomer math. I only have one sobriety date. It's the only one I've ever had, and relapse does not have to be a part of a person's story. It's not part of mine. But I heard it said many times is either I change or my sobriety date will change. And I've changed a lot since I got my sobriety date, and I'm very happy for that. And it's a direct result of doing the things that you did. You told me that you did. So, and I have a home group. It's the Auburn Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm missing that meeting this morning. It's 9 o'clock on Sunday mornings, but I'm real happy being here with you. So, through a set of bad breaks and misunderstandings, and somehow or other, I ended up in AA. And I see it's come to that for you, too, because you're here with me today. But I wasn't an alcoholic, because I had quit drinking. I hadn't found you yet, and I'm not sure if I wanted to quit drinking, but I wanted to quit having the consequences of drinking. I didn't like what was happening to me because of drinking. So I quit. But I didn't know how to quit. So I thought, well, I'll just stay stoned. I'm a grower. I'm a gardener. So I had shopping bags full of marijuana, and I quit drinking. And I thought, if it gets bad, I'll smoke a little marijuana. And about 20 minutes later, it got bad, and I stayed stoned for, I don't know how long, a while, maybe a year. I'm not sure. I didn't know I'd ever have to talk about it, but But I ended up in AA. My sister, my older sister, during this time that I was not drinking and using a lot of Visine, she came to AA. And what she said to me, she tricked me. She said that I would like the people and the people would like me. She hooked me. So I end up in AA, but I'm not alcoholic. My goodness, I'm not even drinking. But I knew that marijuana counted, so that's what my sobriety date is, the last time I smoked marijuana. So I'm going to meetings, and one could ask the question, why would a person who's not alcoholic go to AA meetings? But I had no defense against the love that I felt here. I don't remember what you said, but I remember how you made me feel. And the way you made me feel is that it encouraged me to come back again. So I came back, and finally one day, I raised my hand and said, I'm alcoholic. The guy next to me said, oh, it's unanimous finally. So my story is I caught alcoholism from you guys. This is contagious. This is where I caught it. I was introducing myself as an existentialist prior to that, whatever that is. But so I'm going to AA, and I'm thinking there must be something in this blue book about marijuana, because it seems like a lot of people have a struggle with that. So I'm digging around in that book, and I can't seem to find anything. I saw one line in there about being constitutionally incapable of being honest, and I thought, well, that kind of fits the marijuana description. But then one day I found it in the book, and it's buried in the book, page 1. Here lies a Hampshire grenadier, caught his death drinking small cold beer. The good soldiers ne'er forgot whether he died by musket or by pot. There it is. They don't mention hard drugs till page 7. So I'm going to meetings, and somebody says, you have an allergy. You're going to have to go to meetings for the rest of your life. I got to thinking about that, and my dad had an allergy to bananas. He didn't go to BA. I don't think there is such a thing as BA. I don't know. But I never saw him eat a banana in his whole life. He had a bad reaction to it, and he stopped eating bananas. He never came home and said, oh, I had a bad day at work, I need a couple of bananas. Say, but bananas and alcohol are very different. Bananas didn't talk to him the way alcohol talked to me. And alcohol, it talks to me in my own voice. And what it does is it continually convinces me to have another drink, and it lies to me. I have a couple of drinks. So I never had a couple of drinks in my life. So all the things and alcohol did a lot of things to me, being arrested, losing jobs, relationships, never having any money, just trashing my life. It did those things to me, but what it did for me was so much more important that I would ignore what it did to me. So I need help. My dad didn't need any help not eating bananas. I need help not drinking. I can't do it by myself. So I'm still going to meetings, and one of these days, one time this old timer comes and pokes me in the chest. You know how they are. Hey, kid. You know, I was like a 39-year-old bachelor at the time. And he says, hey, kid, you reading the book? I said, I don't really like that book that much. It's not very well written. I don't know any Mr. Brown. I don't really like that book. You got a sponsor? No, I got it. I don't got a sponsor. You working the steps? No, I don't like your 12 commandments. You praying? No, I don't believe in God. You meditating? No, my head's too busy for that. Then he asked me the kicker. He says, how's it going? Well, It wasn't going too good. It wasn't going too good. I was getting very close to the end of my rope. There's only, as I see it from my experience, there's only a window of time between putting the drink down, putting the drugs down, and working the program. There's a little period in there where it's kind of fun, it's different. Like, oh, I like not drinking, but it wears off. I wasn't really sober, I was just undrunk. And one time I stopped and kind of read this thing that Phil read a little more carefully. And it says how it works at the top. And it says that I have to follow this path. And I got to thinking about that. Do I have the skill set to be able to do this? Oh, I can follow a path. I had a path to the liquor store. I created this rut between me and the liquor store, and me and the connection. I can do the same thing over and over again. I can follow a path. And I like to mow lawns. And when you mow a lawn and look over your shoulder, you can't even see your footsteps because the grass pops right back up again. In order to create a path, like hundreds of people or maybe thousands of people have to walk over the same ground over and over and over again, and a path is created. And it turns out that if you go to a college or a school or something, you see all these paths, and they're all shortcuts. They're like a shortcut to get from one place to another. And I realized that that's what AA is. It's a shortcut between the life that I had and the life that you said that you have, that I wanted to have. So I said, I can do this. I can follow this path. But it's like if you go to the doctor and you get a prescription, the prescription's not important. It's the medicine that's important. Or you go to dinner and it's not the menu that's important. It's the meal. So it's not the map, which is the steps. It's the path. I have to follow the path. So I've got to take some action. So I said, okay, I can do this. Then it says something about people that don't recover do not completely give themselves to this program. And I thought, well, I completely gave myself to alcohol. I know how to do that. I loved alcohol. I'd still be a virgin if it wasn't for alcohol. But in the end, alcohol said, "Get in the car, bitch." And I got in the car. I did what alcohol told me to do. Alcohol was my master. It had me. I completely gave myself to alcohol. So I can do that. Then it says something about being honest. I'd lied to myself for so long I had no idea what that was. I believed my own thoughts. But I'm in AA and I'm listening to you, and I'm hearing you tell the truth about yourself. And I slowly learned to be able to tell the truth about myself by listening to you tell the truth about yourself. I never read it in a book of how to tell the truth, but I learned it in AA by listening to you. Then it says something about if you want what we have. And I think, well, yeah, I want to not drink. I really was tired of that. And I'm sober a little while more, and I realize it's not that you don't drink, it's that you like not drinking. That's a big step from not drinking. And then later on, I realized the real beauty you have, the magic you have, is to relieve me of the bondage of self. You actually care about other people in a way that I didn't even know was possible. Then it says something about half measures avail us nothing. And I understood that to mean is that if all I do is quit drinking, that's only half of what I have to do. That's not going to work. Quitting drinking that will not make me successful. It's quitting drinking and changing that makes me successful. So the other half of what I have to do besides quitting drinking is work the program. Then it says something about going to any lengths. I said, well, I'm not going to do that. You're going to ask me to do something weird. I just kind of tell you, something's going to be weird here. It's like I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid. I'm not going to the airport and handing out literature wearing a orange or whatever. I'm not doing that. So then it says, remember we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, and powerful. I heard a guy talking about it. He says, which of those words do you think is the most important one? Cunning? It's cunning. If you're here a while, you can see how cunning it is. Baffling? Alcoholism is totally baffling. Powerful? We know that too. He said the most important words are word remember. I have to remember that we deal with alcohol. Then it says something about getting rid of our old ideas. I can remember many times I'd go to the grocery store and I'd buy a bottle of scotch, a carton of Marlboro, and a self-help book. And I say, what is wrong with me? I wanted to figure out what was wrong with me. There's a guy named Father Terry who says you can't change something you can't name. You got to put a name on it. I knew that something was wrong, but I didn't know what it was. And I come to A and I found out there's a word for it. It's called alcoholism. That's what I have. That's the description. That's my diagnosis, if you will. I need to know that in order to find the solution for it. So I'm coming to A and I'm thinking this is brainwashing. And I realized that my brain needed a good scrub. And it's like I had to get rid of my old ideas. My ideas were killing me. So I had to be open to finding some other solution than my own thinking. Then it says we had to let go absolutely. I have no idea what that means. But I remember of a guy who's out hiking and he slips and falls and he's facing a very steep hill and he grabs onto a branch. And he's afraid of dying, and he screams out, "Is anybody there? Help, help, anybody there?" He hears this booming voice come back, "Let go." He says, "Is there anybody else there?" Then it says something about fearless and thorough. I think, well, how do you do something fearlessly when you're full of fear? I still don't understand that. And I'd pretty much half-assed everything in my life up until that point, so the chances of me being thorough were slim. Then it says something about it, without help it's too much, and I said, yeah, that's for sure. And then it says, basically, we're going to talk about God. Doesn't say it in those words, but that's what they mean. Well, this is kind of where I have to get off because I didn't believe in God. But there was a power that was happening by being with you that was stronger than my old ideas about that. So I was able to stay and work through that in my own time, in my own way. And I'm very grateful for that. That in how it works is it does not tell me what to believe. I can believe whatever I want to believe, and so can you. So I was able to set aside my prejudices about that because I really wanted to stay sober. So my sister suggested I go see this guy named Howard in Sacramento, who is a member of AA but also a family practitioner counselor. And I went to see Howard, and for the first time in my life, I told somebody the truth about myself. I would describe my drinking as secretive and sleazy. And I had a lot of secrets. And I snot cried in Howard's office for an hour and told him the truth. And I heard somebody say once that alcoholics really should go to veterinarians instead of doctors because veterinarians are used to guessing what's wrong with their patients. So we never tell them the truth. At the end of the hour, Howard got out a piece of paper and he wrote, "Prescription, get on your knees and pray." I paid him $50 for that. And I started to do that. I said, "God, what do you want me to do?" And give me the power to do it. Amen. And at night I'd say, "Thank you for another day of sobriety." And Howard gave me a phone number. He says, "Call this woman." And I called her, and that was Donna. And I asked Donna to be my sponsor. And I never met her before. And I agreed with Donna that I'd do 4 meetings a week, that I'd write in a journal and share my journal with her every week, and that I would work the steps. And I started off doing that. And there's little numbers in front for people that went to college. And so I started with 1. And I looked back over my life, and it was real clear to me that when I took a drink, I couldn't stop. I didn't have the power to stop. And when alcohol was not in me, I forgot that and somehow thought that I could be successful with it again. And I did this one experiment. I really did not want to be alcoholic. That was not on my career path. And so I decided that, and by this time I'm tending bar. The jobs had gotten worse and worse and worse and worse. I'm a bartender, which is the only job I could get. And I decided that I would quit drinking for 30 days to prove to myself that I was an alcoholic, because I knew that an alcoholic couldn't do that, although I didn't know what an alcoholic was. So I didn't drink for 30 days. And I had a glass of wine celebrating not drinking for 30 days at lunchtime, and I was in jail at midnight that night. I set out to prove I wasn't alcoholic, and I ended up proving that I was alcoholic, because when I take a drink, I can't stop. And there's another part to that. I call it step 1, part B, that I have a lot of ample proof that I did a very poor job managing my life and that I need a new manager. So if my life looks good now, it's because I'm not managing it. I found a power that's helping me. And one of the things that I do to help me was I don't ask the question why. Why is a management question. I'm in footwork. And the question I ask myself is, what am I going to do about it? For instance, why am I alcoholic? Not a good question. No good answer. What am I going to do about it? A good question with a good answer. And I found that because I didn't understand or couldn't accept the fact that I was powerless over alcohol, I ended up trashing my life. And so one of the things that I do now is I don't fight reality, or I make an effort not to fight reality. Because when I fight reality, I lose, except 100% of the time. When I fight reality, I lose. And one of the ways that I used to fight reality was thinking that I could drink. So I don't get in the ring to do that anymore. Step 2, it seems like the speakers this weekend, there's a little bit of a been in prison theme. I did 15 years in prison, but I went home every night. I was a teacher. So I love convicts, but I love going home at night too. But during my time teaching in the prison system, I asked my students if they'd heard of AA. And as you can well imagine, most of them had. But I asked them some more questions. Have you ever had over a year of sobriety in AA? Have you ever worked the steps? Have you had a sponsor? Have you had a service commitment? And during that 15-year period, I probably had 25 guys who said yes to all those questions. All 25 of them told me it was the best time of their life. They typically had an old lady, they had a car, they had a job, they had a place to live. Life was good. I asked them one more question. What are you doing in prison? They all had the same answer. I stopped going to meetings. The way that I see it is if I stop going to meetings, I'm going to go insane, because I've been restored to sanity. And if I go insane, I'm going to drink again. So I go to the meetings so I don't go insane. And the meetings help me see what happens to people that don't go to the meetings. They drink again, and they go insane. And a little saying came out of that I like is, I don't let the life that AA gave me get in the way of my AA way of life. This is a way of life. And all the goodness that comes to all of us who stay sober for a while, we have to protect that from getting in the way of our AA way of life. So, step 3, I go to my sponsor and say, I'm done. Don't believe in God. And besides, this AA stuff does not make any sense at all. It's so full of contradictions, and it's crazy. So what are you talking about? So, you heard people say you have to be rigorously honest to make this program. Someone else says, fake it till you make it. You read the book, page 21, and it says something about the problem of the alcoholic is in his mind. You go to the meeting, he says, think, think, think. You read in the book someplace it says, we're prey to misery and depression. But we're not a glum lot. Someone says, let go. Someone else says, hang in there. Will you hang in there or do you let go? Taking a trip, not taking a trip. Recovering, recovered. Oh, at least it's only suggestions. Well, how come there's over 100 musts in the first 100 pages? We're not sick people trying to get well. Is that how it goes? I'll skip that one. I don't remember that one. You got to give it away to keep it. I went to the bank manager and says, well, I got to give it all away because I want to keep it. No. You got to surrender to win. I'm sure all the military folks really like that one. Yeah. On one page it says, God could and would if he were sought. The page before that it says, may you find him now. Do you have to find him or can you just look for him? There is one who has all power. That one's alcohol. Or one's God. And the sense before that is, remember how powerful alcohol is. Well, how can alcohol be powerful if God has all the power? I stay up at night thinking about that kind of stuff. Someone says, hey, keep it simple, stupid. It's not rocket science. The guy next to me says under his breath, yeah, it's way more complicated than that. If you haven't had your last drink, if you can't remember your last drink, you haven't had it. The book says you won't remember the suffering and misery even a week ago. Don't make any major decisions in the first year, but turn your will and your life over to the care of God. That's a major decision. Don't get in a relationship your first year, but get a sponsor and tell them all your shit. My favorite, half measures avail us nothing. You'll be amazed before you're halfway through. So then my sponsor says, any contradictions in your life? Oh. And I got to thinking about that, and a while back I just graduated from UCLA and I went to Europe, and I convinced a friend of mine to wire me $200 because I ran out of money very quickly, as you can well imagine, and I got the $200 one day, and the next day I woke up and it was all gone. I didn't have any bruises on me, and I still had my watch, so I just drank it all up, I guess, and played the big shot. And that night, I was sprayed with lice spray, and I stayed in a mission. And I think that's not the picture of myself that I had. But that's what happened when I drank. I still had 9 more years of drinking after that. There's a line in the book, 34. That in a lot of ways were normal, except when it comes to alcohol. And I thought about that, and I thought, I've never walked into a grocery store and say, hey, could I buy everybody a loaf of bread? Yeah. So I look at this third step. I so wanted to be able to do the things that you said that you did. It was really important to me. I believed you. I know you weren't all lying to me at the same time. And so I focused on that word decision, and I decided to work steps 4 through 9. It took a while, but that's the basis of how I was able to work step 3. That I wanted to stay in AA. And I heard somebody talking about electricity, and that like this room has electricity in it, and if I want to, I can make a connection to it without understanding it. And the power is available to me when I make a connection to it. So this power that you're talking about, God, is available to me when I plug into it somehow. And I can do that however that works for me. But I'm not one of these people that, this is even in the book, I don't know where in the book, but there's some lines in there like, if God's willing, we never have to deal with drinking again. I'm not one of those people who subscribe to that. I've never heard anybody walk through that door and say, I got drunk last night because God wasn't willing. I don't see that as his job. I see his job as providing the power. So I can connect to the power, but I've got to do the work. I had a landscaping business for quite a while, and I had an electric jackhammer because it was really rocky where I lived. And I'd plug that jackhammer into the power, but it would just lay there until I picked it up and used it. I still had to do the work, but I needed the power to do the work. And it's like the tools that a lot of the tools we have are power tools. So I need the power for the tools to work. But the job for me is still to do the work. I love the story of a guy who buys this farm. It's an old rundown farm. Nothing works. It's all dilapidated. The buildings all need paint. The machinery doesn't work. It's full of weeds. He works hard for years and makes it really nice. A neighbor comes by one day and says, boy, you and God sure did a nice job on this place. He said, you should have seen it when God had it. So, I get to step 4. I get out a piece of paper. I look at it for a couple months. I heard a funny story the other day about a guy who his sponsor's bugging him to do his step. So, when are you going to get your 4-step done? He says, I'm 95% done. All I got to do is write it down. I was kind of like that. So, eventually, I put my dad's name on top of a piece of paper. I hated my dad. I didn't have a lot of resentments that I knew about, but I had some hate in my heart towards him. He was an alcoholic, and he was the designated problem in our family. And I started writing about the pain that I felt, and I started crying and writing and crying, and called in sick, and I called my sister, and she came over, and something happened that day. Just my willingness to want to clean things up is like I stopped hating him that day. I don't understand it, but my fears left. I had women and God on my fears list, which is difficult to have relationships with those kind of people when they're on the list. And a lot of secrets, a lot of sexual secrets. When I went to do my 5th step, it was kind of a rainy day in November, and we were driving out in the country with my sponsor, and she saw a lot of, it was the day the trash was being picked up, and some cans had been knocked over, and she saw a lot of trash, and she was saying something about needing to change her attitude. And I do my 5th step, which was like dumping a garbage can. And on the way home from that, I saw a rainbow, and it just touched my heart deeply. On page 75, there's some wonderful promises that happen when somebody does a 5th step, and those happened to me. I got really excited about my sobriety that day because I was doing the things that you said you did. I was participating in my sobriety. 6 and 7, when I first got sober, I had an alcoholic truck. You probably know what they look like. Door panels a different color, windshield's cracked, springs are coming up through the upholstery, tires are bald, somebody else tags on the back, no insurance. That truck was so bad that if I could have found somebody to date, if I could find a woman to date, and she would get in that truck, I would not want to be with her. So hence, I was incredibly lonely. I hadn't had a date in maybe 5 years, and so I buy a new car. It's the nicest car I ever had, and I call it my sobriety car. And I started trolling. I started going to a lot of meetings. And surprise, surprise, I met a woman named Betty, and we started dating. Our idea of a date was going to a meeting. I'd be walking her home afterwards to her door and holding her hand, and I don't know whether I should kiss her or say the Lord's Prayer. So I ended up marrying Betty. I don't know if anybody's planning on using AA as a dating service, but I will say this about it. The odds are very good, but the goods are very odd. I include myself in that. So Betty had 2 kids. So I get married. I'm a bachelor. First time I got married. So all of a sudden I'm a husband and a father. She had a sister with kids, and I'm an uncle. All on the same day. I'm all 3 of those things, and I don't know how to do any of that stuff. But I'm learning. I'm working on being a better person by doing the steps. And so I'm taking inventories, and I find out about myself that I'm a fault finder. I find fault in what you do, and I push you out of my life. I pushed everybody out of my life that way. Prior to getting sober, my best thinking was to put this barbed wire fence around this property where I was growing marijuana and to keep the teenagers away from my pot. And I had a case of vitamin C and some brewer's yeast, and I was just going to be a healthy drunk and a pothead. And I realized later on that the worst punishment we have in America is called solitary confinement. And I did that to myself. That's where alcoholism took me. So now I'm married, and I want to learn how to do this. But the problem is you can't do anything right. I have these internationally accepted standard ways of doing things that I know about, and you don't. And I need to tell you about them. But you don't really want to hear about them because it's like nobody could do the dishes right. And it's like I decided in the interest of having some peace in the family that I would do the dishes. And I like to garden, so my hands are always dirty, so I like doing the dishes. But I wanted to do the dishes peacefully. So sometimes I'd have to stand in front of the sink for several minutes sometimes just to get quiet enough to just do the dishes. It's amazing how spiritual it is to just do the dishes. And I started treating my family the way you treated me when I came to AA. I started treating them like newcomers. Angela was 7 when I became her dad. And I started writing her little notes and telling her how much I loved her and how important she was to me. Many, many years later, she asked me to walk her down the aisle. I'm the stepdad. I got to walk her down the aisle. I got to write the checks for that wedding, too. I was really happy to do that because I had a good job at the time, too. And at her wedding, her biological father came up and thanked me for raising his daughter. You gave me that. I don't know how to do that. I pushed people out of my life. My son Sean was 13 when I became his dad. And I didn't know it, but he was already starting off on his path of addiction. And when he was 17, he borrowed my sobriety car one day and smashed it. He got drunk and smashed my car. I was mad. I was not spiritual. How dare he smash my sobriety car? Some Al-Anon folks made a house call in Auburn, and one of the women said to me, well, maybe it's not your sobriety car, maybe it's Sean's sobriety car. He was 17. That was his last drink. 2 weeks ago, he celebrated 32 years of sobriety. I have a son with 32 years of sobriety. When I had 5 years of sobriety, that was a rough year. That was the year that Sean smashed my car. My mom died that year, and Betty's sister was killed in a car accident that year. And she had 3 young children in her car. And then there was a boy 30 days old, a boy 5, and a boy 8. The 5-year-old was paralyzed. He died 3 years ago of drug addiction. He went to prison. The The 8-year-old died last year, 39 years old. The boy who was 30 years old will celebrate 4 years in NA next week. So, I have a nephew who will have 4 years of sobriety next week. When all that was going on, my wife took a drink. She had 36 years of sobriety and took a drink. And that's been a struggle too, but this, in the next couple of weeks, she'll have a year of sobriety, so. It's cunning, baffling, and powerful. My 8th step is pretty easy. I moved around a lot. I'm more than willing to straighten the record with anybody that I've had contact with. I was sober several years before I realized you could move in the daytime. The amends that touched me the most, my mom and my dad are the people I hurt the most. And my dad, I ended up having a lot of love in my heart for him, and I invited him to come and move in with me. He came and lived with us for a short while, a very short while, because he was there a few weeks, and somebody said something he didn't like, and he said, "I'm out of here." And he was a fault finder. He died a very lonely man. My mom died when I had 5 years of sobriety, but I was a good son in the last years of her life, and you taught me how to do that. But the amends that touched me the most were a couple of financial amends that were pretty silly, but one was for $10. I'd been in a restaurant and gotten too much money in change, and I thought, well, if you can't count, it's not my job to teach you. So I put the money in my pocket, and I was also the secretary of a step study meeting at the same time, and we were probably on step 9, and I went into the restaurant, and the woman said she was selling the place. And I thought, well, I've got to give the money back. If I'm going to do it, I got to do it now. So I said, can I talk to you? I took her aside and explained what happened. I started to cry. You know, I thought, that was the best $10 high I ever had. It helped encourage me to pay the IRS back. The $5 man, Sean went away to school, San Diego State, and he called me a year or so into his sobriety and said that he'd been stealing from me and wanted to make amends. But he was so poor he could only send me $5. And so he sends me $5, and I'm excited for him. Because, you know, we say how it works, we look at the steps. We say why it works, we look at the traditions. And then we look back at the steps and say when it works is when you do step 9. That's when the real power of this program comes into our life. And so I was so excited for him, I sent him back $100. I didn't tell him anything about the connection between the two. I just sent him $100. And a while passed, and another $5 came, and I sent him another 100. And all of a sudden, the 5 started coming really fast. I think step 10 is my favorite step, if there is such a thing as a favorite step. The reason I think that is that it helps me clearly know where the problem is. Prior to finding you, I always thought you were the problem. Situations were the problem. Circumstances were the problem. And I come to A, and I learn over time that no matter what's going on, I'm the problem. It's me and my attitudes. That's always what it is. When I first came to A, I'm like the guy that he's a construction worker, and it's lunchtime, he opens his lunch pail. He says, "Oh, a tuna sandwich. I hate tuna." And he eats it, and next day, he's on a new job site, and lunchtime comes, and he opens his lunch pail. "Oh, tuna sandwich. I hate tuna." And by Wednesday, when he does it again, his coworkers say, "Well, why don't you have your wife make something else?" He says, "Oh, I live alone." There's two things I hate: the way things are and change. You know, but I've learned by working inventory process is a powerful tool that we have. And I realized that when there's enemies within, there's enemies everywhere. And I can get rid of all those enemies within. And I have no enemies anyplace anymore because I've got rid of the ones that were inside of me. So this watching out for resentment, fear, selfishness, and dishonesty, they're all really the same thing. It's like resentment is I didn't get my way in the past. Fear is I'm not going to get my way in the future. And, anger is not getting my way right now. They're all about me being selfish. And, I can learn how to change that. I've got the most misquoted line in all the literature, and you hear this all the time, people say what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. And that's not what the book says. It says what we were like, what happened, and what we're like now. And the way that I describe it is like we go outside to the corner, there's a traffic light out there, and the light's green, yellow, red, green, yellow, red. It's doing it right now. But when I pull up to it, I've got a story about that light. And, I want to fight whatever is going on. If it's red, I want it to be green. So, again, it's about accepting reality the way it is. It's not the light. See, the light's not the problem. It's the story I'm telling that's the problem. I have a friend who likes to thank God every time he's at a red light for his sobriety. Someone else I know likes to close his eyes for a moment and get in touch with his higher power. He says, someone will always let you know when the light's green. I love a story told about Buddha. He walked around barefoot a lot and he stubbed his toe a lot. So he wanted to figure out a way to make the earth softer. So he wouldn't stub his toe so much. And he thought, well, wouldn't it be nice if there was enough cows that we could kind of cover the whole earth with hide? He knew that wasn't possible, so he wrapped his feet in leather and the whole world changed. Something I like to say to myself regularly when I feel disturbed is, I could feel peace instead of this. I tell myself that. I could feel peace instead of that. I'm the gatekeeper of my thoughts. I'm not responsible for the thought coming, but what I do with it, I am responsible for. And I make an effort to never think about stuff I don't want to have happen. Guys, I sponsor quite a few guys, and I can see that almost all the unhappiness in their life and all the misery in their life is caused by them thinking thoughts that aren't true. So I need to look at my thoughts, because I'm only one thought away from being happy. And I'm always only one thought away. So when I take care of my thought life, everything else really is a lot better for me. So it's a way of, the inventory process is a way of discovering the problem and the solution for it. So 11, I read someplace, and I like this a lot. It said, sought by paying attention to improve my conscious contact with God. When I pay attention, I'm where the power is, because the power can only be in one place, and that's right here, right now. That's the only place the power can be. And when I'm aware of that, I'm connected to the power. We have a lot of topic discussion meetings where I live, and every single meeting, about halfway through, someone's going to say, what's the topic? And I say, it's paying attention. That's always the topic. When my head and my heart and my feet are all in the same place, I'm where God is. That's where he hangs out. I don't know if you ever heard this thing where you're in a big space and there's like a, now hear this, like a public address announcement. Change that a little bit. It's now hear this. That's where the power is. I like 12. I spent a lot of years cramming the message. Now I just carry the message. There's a difference. I'm certainly a better driver, a better customer, better neighbor, father, son, all those things as a result of working these principles in my life. But the thing I think the magic of 12 is that I woke up. I was stoned. There was nobody home. I was walking around, but I was dead. And I come to AA, and I do these things that you said you did, and my life changed. And the neat part about it is not that I got lucky and my life changed. Everybody who does it, their life changed. It's like gravity. Gravity works for everybody. We get on the roof, we all fall on our ass, every single one of us. Gravity does not pick out people. It's a spiritual law. And what we're doing in AA is the same thing. And I can look back on my awakening and see that it really is a whole list of things I was wrong about. I was wrong about God. I thought God somehow was for weak people. I was wrong about the steps. They set me free. I was wrong about that book. That's a fabulous book. There's some descriptions, there's some things in that book that are just mind-boggling. They're so brilliant. I was wrong about you. You're fabulous. I love people in AA. I thought I couldn't trust you. No, I couldn't trust me. I can't be trusted. Don't leave me alone. I can't be trusted. I was wrong about gratitude. I thought, well, I got a pile here. It's like, I don't like that stuff. I don't like being an alcoholic. I like this. I like shiny new cars, new stuff. But I didn't know what pile to put stuff in. I had alcoholism in the wrong pile. It's one of the best gifts been given to me to be alcoholic. So now I just have one pile. Thank you, God. Life's not happening to me. It's happening for me. Something coming into my life. It's for me to grow from, to learn from. I was a taker. I took and took and took, and everything was gone. And now I give and give, and my life is so rich and overflowing. It's amazing. So, I think of a story when I think of that, about how wrong I was about my awakening, about a woman it's called the Cookie Thief. She's at the airport, and she's reading a novel, and she has a bag of cookies in the chair next to her, and then there's a man sitting in the chair one over, and she's reading and has a cookie once in a while, and she looks over, and that guy eats a cookie too, and she's kind of shy, so she doesn't say anything, and this goes on for a while, and she's pretty aghast, but again, doesn't say anything, and eventually it gets down to the last cookie, and he breaks it in half and gives her half, and just then her plane is called, and she rushes to get away from this guy, and gets in the plane, sits down, gets out her knapsack to get her novel out, and there's her bag of cookies. She was eating his cookies. It's like, oh. I was wrong. I love the set-aside prayer. I don't know what else I might still be wrong about. I could still be wrong about a whole bunch of stuff. So I need to keep coming here to find out what else I still might be wrong about. During the time that every once in a while I'll be like in a grocery store or something, and someone will say, I know you from someplace. And I say, it's not good news. I've been in AA for 36 years. I worked in a prison for 15 years, and I taught a DUI class for 20 years. It's one of those three things. But I see people, what I describe is I see people working the steps backwards, and I just want to give you a quick idea of what I think that would look like. And it's like, sobriety is like an escalator, and the escalator is going down, but I want to go up. So I'm walking up the escalator that's going in that direction, and I have to keep going. If I stop, I go backwards. And there's no real coasting in AA. I've heard it said you're either going towards a drink or away from a drink. So I need to keep moving, or I'm going to slip back. So this is my quick little rendition of the steps backwards. Different steps, but backwards. 12. I've got principles. It's a dog-eat-dog world, and I got to get mine before you get it. It's not enough to go around. 11, I pray, me, more, now, amen. 10, I take inventory of yours. How do you stay sober doing the things that you do? Does someone help tie your shoes in the morning for you? 8. I'm going to skip 9. I'm not paying the money back. 8. 8. I got a list. It's a shit list. Your name's on it. 7. Humility is not one of my faults. If I had a fault, I'd pick humility. 6. I like that Frank Sinatra song, I Did It My Way. 5. I'm not copping to anything even if you have pictures. 4. I can never get a break. I live in this town called Pittyville, population 1. There's this shit fairy that follows me around and is always dumping on my head. I'm so unlucky. If I fell in a barrel of tits, I'd come out sucking my thumb. Three, turn my will over to God. What if he messes up my life? 2, now that I have all this information about the inner workings of my mind, I think it'd be impossible for me to have a drink. 1, maybe I was just thirsty. Maybe I'm overreacting. I wonder what that cherry vodka tastes like. So I take a drink. Click, click. Handcuffs. When they put handcuffs on you, they're saying you can't even be trusted with your own hands. You go to jail. They say empty your pockets. My wallet. Picture of my granddaughter. Won't be able to see her anymore. Driver's license. That's going to go. Credit cards. I didn't have any of those when I got sober, and I won't have any more, so pretty soon those will all be gone. I take my wedding ring off, but I gained 20 pounds when I quit smoking. I gained 50 pounds when I quit smoking. That was 34 years ago. Money. I told you what happens when I drink. No money. Car keys. They're gone. There's a little camel that starts his day on his knees and goes 24 hours without a drink. My sobriety coin, it says, "To thine own self be true." I'll be lying to myself so fast I won't need that. Everything good in my life is a direct result of me being with you in Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't want to give that up for a drink. I'm not going to give that up for a drink. Back to how it works, it says something about, I remember, I've done this in drinking, but also in sobriety, is listening to this Kansas tune, Dust in the Wind. Oh, it's all dust. I get real maudlin and melancholy and dust in the wind. It's like, what's the point? The literature says the point is to be willing to grow spiritually. Well, I asked myself, what does that look like? Where do you put your hands? How do you do that? And the more reading I do, I always come across the same thing as the single most important thing we can do to grow spiritually is be kind to each other. When we're kind to each other, we're where God is. If you can't be kind to us, I hope you can be kind to yourself. Because if you can be kind to yourself, then you can't help be kind to us. That's kind of how the world works. And at the very end of how it works talks about 3 pertinent ideas. And pertinent, I think, means that they're important. And in the very back of the book, way back on like 587 or something, way back in the book, it talks about the 3 essentials of recovery. They're indispensable. So it's indispensable, essential, and pertinent. And those are honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. And they line up really good with the pertinent stuff. A, I've got to be honest about my alcoholism. B, I've got to be open-minded about what the solution is going to be. And C, I've got to be willing to seek this power. There's a saying I like as a gardener. It says, you can count the seeds in an apple, but you can't count the apples in a seed. We can count the people in this room, but we can't possibly count the number of people that we can touch when we leave here and carry this message of recovery. And we're going to talk about God. Thank you.